What if I told you that Carl Jung discovered something revolutionary about INFJ, INFP, INTJ, and INTP personalities that could free you from years of thinking there's something wrong with you that needs to be fixed? Before we explore this life-changing insight that could transform how you see yourself forever, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. What you're about to learn will challenge everything you've been told about personal development and self-improvement. Carl Jung spent over 50 years studying the human psyche, and one of his most profound discoveries was that most psychological suffering doesn't come from being broken or defective. It comes from forgetting who you truly are and trying to become someone you were never meant to be. This insight is especially crucial for you as an intuitive introvert, because society has been telling you your entire life that your natural way of being is somehow wrong or insufficient. You've probably been told you're too sensitive, too deep, too quiet, too intense, too idealistic, or too different. You've likely spent years trying to fix these so-called flaws, not realizing that they're actually your greatest strengths. Jung understood something that most therapists and self-help gurus still don't grasp today. He realized that INFJ, INFP, INTJ, and INTP personalities aren't broken versions of extroverted sensors who need to be repaired. You're complete, whole beings who operate according to a different blueprint entirely. Think about this for a moment. When was the last time someone told you that your sensitivity was a superpower rather than a weakness? When did anyone explain that your need for solitude isn't antisocial behavior, but essential maintenance for your psychological well-being? When has anyone celebrated your ability to see possibilities and patterns that others miss? The truth is, you don't need fixing because you were never broken in the first place. What you need is to remember the magnificent being you were before the world convinced you to be ashamed of your authentic nature. Jung called this process individuation, but I prefer to think of it as remembering, because deep down you already know who you are. You've always known. That knowing has just been buried under layers of social conditioning, family expectations, and cultural programming that told you to be different than you naturally are. As an INFJ, you came into this world with an extraordinary ability to understand people at the deepest levels. You could sense emotions and motivations that others couldn't even see. But instead of being celebrated for this gift, you were probably told you were reading too much into things or being overly dramatic. So you learned to doubt your perceptions and question your intuitive insights. As an INFP, you entered life with an unshakable connection to your values and an almost mystical ability to see the potential in every person and situation. But the world told you to be more practical, more realistic, more willing to compromise your ideals. So you started believing that your vision for how things could be was naive or unrealistic. As an INTJ, you were born with a strategic mind that could see systems and long-term consequences with remarkable clarity. You could envision better ways of doing almost everything. But people called you arrogant or told you that you thought you were better than everyone else. So you learned to hide your insights and downplay your capabilities. As an INTP, you came equipped with an insatiable curiosity about how everything works and an ability to understand complex principles that others found incomprehensible. But you were told to focus on practical matters and stop getting lost in theoretical abstractions. So you started believing that your natural way of thinking was impractical or worthless. Do you see the pattern here? In every case, you were taught to see your greatest gifts as problems that needed to be solved. You were conditioned to believe that the very qualities that make you unique and valuable were actually flaws that made you less worthy of love and acceptance. Jung recognized that this kind of psychological conditioning creates what he called neurosis. Not because there's something inherently wrong with you, but because you're trying to live in a way that contradicts your essential nature. It's like trying to force a river to flow uphill. The river isn't broken, It's just being asked to do something that goes against its fundamental design. This is why traditional approaches to personal development often fail for people like you. Most self-help advice is designed for extroverted sensors who thrive on external stimulation, quick action, and concrete results. When you try to apply these strategies to your intuitive introverted nature, you end up feeling even more defective and broken than before. You've probably tried to become more outgoing, more assertive, more focused on immediate practical concerns. You've likely attempted to suppress your sensitivity, ignore your need for deep meaning, or force yourself to be satisfied with surface-level interactions and activities. And when these efforts failed, you concluded that you must be fundamentally flawed in some way. But Jung would tell you that your failure to become someone else is actually a sign of psychological health. Your authentic self was protecting you from betraying your own nature. Your resistance to becoming more extroverted or more sensing-oriented wasn't stubbornness or weakness. It was wisdom. The revolutionary insight that Jung discovered is that psychological health doesn't come from fixing your perceived flaws. It comes from accepting and expressing your authentic nature more fully. It comes from remembering who you were before you learned to be ashamed of yourself. This doesn't mean you can't grow or develop. It means that healthy growth happens when you expand and refine your natural gifts rather than trying to replace them with qualities that belong to other personality types. It means becoming more of who you already are rather than becoming someone completely different. For you as an intuitive introvert, this process of remembering involves reconnecting with the parts of yourself that you've been taught to hide or suppress. It means reclaiming your sensitivity as a strength rather than a weakness. It means honoring your need for depth and meaning instead of apologizing for it. It means trusting your intuitive insights instead of constantly second-guessing them. Jung understood that people with your personality type have access to levels of awareness and understanding that are rare and precious. You can perceive subtleties and possibilities that most people completely miss. You can understand complex emotional and psychological dynamics with remarkable accuracy. You can envision solutions and innovations that others can't even imagine. These aren't consolation prizes for being too introverted or too sensitive. These are extraordinary gifts that the world desperately needs. But you can only offer these gifts when you stop trying to be someone else and start embracing who you truly are. The process of remembering who you are isn't always easy, especially after years of conditioning that taught you to see your authentic self as problematic. You might feel resistance from family members, friends, or colleagues who have grown accustomed to your adapted persona. You might face criticism for being too intense, too idealistic, or too different. But Jung would remind you that the opinions of others don't determine your worth or validity. The fact that some people don't understand or appreciate your nature doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It simply means they're operating from a different blueprint, with different strengths and limitations. The beautiful truth that Jung discovered is that when you stop trying to fix yourself and start remembering who you are, something magical happens. Your energy returns. Your creativity flourishes. Your intuitive abilities become sharper and more reliable. You start attracting people and opportunities that align with your authentic nature. This isn't wishful thinking or New Age fantasy. This is practical psychology based on decades of clinical observation. Jung saw it happen over and over again. When people stopped fighting against their essential nature and started working with it, their lives transformed in ways they never thought possible. But remembering who you are requires more than just intellectual understanding. It requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to yourself and your experiences. Instead of constantly asking, "What's wrong with me?" you need to start asking, "What's trying to emerge through me?" Instead of focusing on your perceived weaknesses and limitations, you need to start paying attention to your natural gifts and inclinations. What comes easily to you that others find difficult? What do you understand intuitively that others need explained? What do you care about so deeply that you can't help but pursue it even when others don't understand? These questions will guide you back to your authentic self much more effectively than any attempt to fix your supposed flaws. Because your authentic self isn't hiding in your weaknesses, it's shining through your strengths, your passions, your natural ways of being and perceiving. Jung also discovered that remembering who you are often involves reclaiming parts of yourself that you rejected or suppressed during childhood and adolescence. Maybe you were naturally artistic, but were told that art wasn't practical. Maybe you were deeply empathetic, but were told you were too emotional. Maybe you were fascinated by abstract ideas, but were told to focus on more concrete concerns. These rejected parts of yourself don't disappear just because you stop expressing them. They go underground, where they continue to influence your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in ways you might not even recognize. Jung called these rejected aspects the shadow, and he understood that psychological wholeness requires integrating these shadow elements back into conscious awareness. For intuitive introverts, shadow integration often involves reclaiming your right to be different, your right to have unusual interests and perspectives, your right to need more solitude and depth than most people. It means stopping the internal criticism that tells you there's something wrong with wanting meaning and authenticity in your life. This process of integration can be challenging because it requires you to confront the ways you've betrayed your own nature in order to fit in or gain approval. You might need to acknowledge that you've been living according to other people's values rather than your own. You might need to admit that you've been pursuing goals that don't actually matter to you. But this confrontation with your own self-betrayal isn't meant to create more shame or self-criticism. It's meant to create compassion for yourself and understanding of why you made the choices you made. You adapted to survive in a world that didn't understand or value your natural way of being. That adaptation was intelligent and necessary at the time. Now, however, you have the opportunity to make different choices. You can choose to honor your authentic nature even when others don't understand it. You can choose to pursue meaning and depth even when the culture around you values speed and superficiality. You can choose to trust your intuitive insights even when others demand logical explanations for everything. Jung understood that this kind of authentic living requires courage. It's much easier to follow the crowd and try to be what others expect you to be, but he also understood that the cost of living inauthentically is enormous. When you betray your own nature, you lose access to your natural gifts and abilities. You become disconnected from your source of energy and inspiration. You start feeling empty, depressed, and lost. The good news is that your authentic self is always available to you. No matter how long you've been trying to be someone else, no matter how deeply you've buried your true nature, it's still there, waiting to be remembered and expressed. Jung called this the indestructible core of the personality, and he found that it could be accessed at any stage of life. The key is learning to listen to the quiet voice of your authentic self rather than the loud demands of your adapted persona. This voice might whisper to you through your dreams, your fantasies, your moments of inspiration, or your feelings of deep resonance with certain ideas or experiences. It's the voice that says, "Yes, this is me," when you encounter something that truly fits your nature. Learning to hear and trust this voice is one of the most important skills you can develop as an intuitive introvert, because this voice will guide you toward the people, places, and activities that nourish your soul and allow your gifts to flourish. It will help you distinguish between what you think you should want and what you actually want. Jung also emphasized the importance of finding others who understand and appreciate your authentic nature. This doesn't mean you need to surround yourself only with people who share your personality type, but it does mean finding at least a few people who can see and value the real you rather than just your adapted persona. These authentic relationships become mirrors that reflect your true worth and help you remember who you are when the world tries to convince you to be someone else. They provide the support and encouragement you need to keep expressing your authentic nature even when it's challenging or misunderstood. As you continue this process of remembering who you are, you'll likely discover that many of the things you thought were problems are actually gifts in disguise. Your sensitivity allows you to perceive subtleties that others miss. Your need for solitude gives you access to insights that only emerge in quiet reflection. Your idealism provides the vision necessary to create positive change in the world. Your intensity isn't too much. It's exactly what's needed to pursue meaningful goals with the dedication they require. Your complexity isn't confusing. It's a reflection of your ability to hold multiple perspectives and understand nuanced situations. Your depth isn't boring. It's a source of wisdom and understanding that can benefit everyone around you. Jung spent his entire career helping people remember these truths about themselves. He understood that the world needs the unique gifts that intuitive introverts bring. He knew that your way of being isn't a mistake or an accident. It's a valuable and necessary part of the human experience. So stop trying to fix yourself. Stop apologizing for who you are. Stop believing that you need to become more like other people in order to be worthy of love and success. You don't need fixing because you were never broken. You just need to remember the magnificent being you've always been. Take some time today to reconnect with your authentic self. Ask yourself what you loved before you learned to be ashamed of it. Remember what excited you before you were told it wasn't practical. Recall what felt natural and easy before you were convinced it was wrong. Your authentic self is your greatest gift to the world. The more fully you express it, the more you'll inspire others to do the same. And that's how we create a world where everyone can remember who they truly are instead of spending their lives trying to become someone else. Share in the comments below one thing you're ready to stop trying to fix about yourself. Your courage to embrace your authentic nature might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this message resonated with you, please share this video with others who might need to remember that they don't need fixing either. And don't forget to subscribe for more content about embracing your authentic nature and living according to your true design. Remember, you are not a problem to be solved. You are a mystery to be lived, a gift to be shared, and a unique expression of consciousness that has never existed before and will never exist again. That's not something that needs fixing. That's something that deserves celebration.